Once and by the time we arrived home, it was already nightfall. The moon was rising high in the starry night, illuminating the forest that surrounded our cottage. I could hear the howls of wolves, gangling dog beasts, and the hoot-hoot of owls in the pines. After the carriage departed, we made our way to the house in the dark. My father carrying a glowing lantern, the orange flame generating the grass blades in the night, as we both carried the bundles of supplies wrapped in white cloth. We'd not spoken since the conversation about his brother. Once we got to the house, my father handed me the glowing lantern and then unlocked the latch on the wood door and it creaked open. We pushed inside and set the market supplies on the wooden dining table in the living room. A fire was crackling in the fireplace, giving the room the only light from the dark cold outside. My mother was awaiting us in the leather armchair by the fire, while Maria was fast asleep by the fire, curled up in sheep's wool. Her tiny figure was wrapped up in blankets, and her blonde curls covered most of her face, like a newborn baby. My father slipped off his riding boots and took off his hat and hung it on the peg by the front door. My mother was half asleep, going in and out. My father shook her awake. "Lola, sweetheart, we have returned," my father said quietly, trying not to wake Maria. My mother awoke yawning, glowing in the firelight, her red hair the color of burning embers. Her soft blue eyes, full of care and love, peered into his. "Francis, you returned. How was the market?" she muttered sleepily. "It was marvelous indeed. Me and Hal were able to grab some herbs, food, powder maps, and many other ailments to aid the farm, as well as seeds for corn and pumpkins. The harvest season comes soon, and winter when the snow sets in. I also acquired this shiny prize." My father presented my mother with the jade brooch that he had bought her this afternoon at the marketplace in the harbor. My mother's eyes glistened and sparkled like jewelry when she saw it. She cupped it in her hands, a gold chain holding the brooch. It was a perfect emerald jade like a lime jade. "Oh my, Francis, it is beautiful. You bought this in the market for me?" She smiled happily. "I did indeed. A vendor was selling the priceless jewels on one of his carpets. I thought of you while buying it." He smiled with his whiskers jiggling. "What a lovely necklace. It shines like something from India," she grinned. "May I?" "Yes, you may." My father approached my mother from behind as she sat and brought both arms around her neck. She took it from her palms and strewn it around her back, the emerald necklace gleaming like polished green marble in the firelight. My mother clutched it with her left hand, and my father kissed her cheek. "How was the meeting?" she asked. "How did you enjoy it?" "It was interesting on that case," they snickered. "It was mostly uneventful. I made no investments," my father said gruffly. "My dear, I am so sorry. What happened?" "They thought it was an oath, but I will prove them wrong by never investing in that stock again. The East India Company are blind with gold. I just prefer that I would have seen it earlier. I have owed my life to them, and the insults spewed on my name I will not forgive. We will discuss this in the morning. And well, thank you, my love," she said happily. Then she turned to me. "How might you help with carrying your little sister to your bed? She is sleeping so." "Of course, Mother," I said, setting the coils of rope in the front chair at the head of the table. As my father began unwrapping the supplies, he turned to me and muttered, "Once you're done with your sister, sway down here and help me snuffle the supplies," my father said. "Aye, sir," I said. I walked over and scooped up little Maria as she snored in her small blankets, and she buried her button-like face into my chest and clutched her tiny hand in my cotton shirt and reached for my leather strap necklace that hung a small potion bottle corked at the top. "Little Hal, we sleep," she squeaked. "Yes, my little pumpkin, we sleep." I sneered a little in good jest at their cute sleep mutterings. The wooden stairs ached as I munched my boots through the narrow corridor of the house, and the walls were stacked with old dusty books in the shelves and paintings of Bach, the Queen, and many other people of fame and royalty. I passed by my father and my mother's bedroom on the right, door closed. Once making it to the top of the stairs, I pressed into the bedroom of mine. It was not much, a tiny room with a stained glass window that looked down into the night fields of barley and corn and pumpkins during this autumn harvest of September. What a glorious time indeed, with the thick oaks turning their leaves in gold and red and orange, making the world appear in such colors like a French Rococo mansion ceiling. It is its own angels out on the branch. It had its own angels on the branches, the sky holding the husk of gray, the weather and wind cool and satisfying, but not cold to freeze your giblets off. A beautiful season. Bookshelves were near the bed with journals and leather-bound logbooks of my father's old shipping logs. I never read them, but I was sure my father would slay me if I broke that oath. A small desk near the window front with a quill and the inkpot sitting was on the right side of the bed and polished golden couches near the side. I laid my little sister on the soft sheets of my bed as she muttered, burped, farted a little toot, which made me giggle, and then yawned. Her small blue eyes, just like our mother's, wrinkled open at me.
I cannot sleep.
You must sleep. You shall have energy for tomorrow. You must plant the pumpkins.
Where did you and Father go today?
We traveled to London to get supplies and food from the market. We got Mother a jade brooch, I said.
A necklace? A shiny piece. I like jade. Did you see any witches in the wood?
I thought it was a little odd she was asking that. I simply smiled. Do not fret, little one. There will be no witches in such oaks. Only friendly animals that will lick your face with love.
Like a deer?
Yes, like a mule deer or an English rabbit, I said.
Deers make silence while rabbits go hop, 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 like you did earlier tis day. How go hop, hop, hop like a rabbit?
She giggled. Ah, yes, that is what I must be, a silly little rabbit. I put up my hands behind my head and made squinting bunny ears with my fingers each on either side of my brain. She giggled groggily and snuffled into the straw pillow. Get some rest.
I had a dream last night,
she muttered. Ah, yes, dreams are magical things, sister. What was this dream?
A dream. A nightmare. London was on fire, the streets in black ash. People in agony like screaming rabbits. It was a scary dream, Hal, but I am indeed well now.
I stared at her, for this dream was strange. But how could London possibly catch fire and burn half the city? It was one of the world's most powerful and booming cities in all of Britain. Although it was just a dream.
How might you sing a tune to me?
A song?
Yes.
I am not up much for singing.
Please, brother?
I rolled my pupils. What song shall I sing for thee?
Any.
Well, I could sing a tune that Father taught me. One of his shanties while he sang on the Mayflower in 1621 to the New World of Plymouth.
Hi, little brother.
I'm the big brother, you the little sister. I laughed in a small voice.
I be the strong one, but you can still protect me,
she said, half asleep. I will always protect you, sister. I was reminded of a song my father taught me when I was young, as a child, while still living in old London town. It is a shanty called Leave Her Johnny, a sad song about a sailor leaving a ship, but innately it is true about the man leaving his wife while he is dying. I cleared my throat.
I thought I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Tomorrow we will get your pay, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, the wind was foul and the sea ran high. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. She shipped its green and none went by, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. I finished singing and my young sister finally started to slumber with a silent breathing snore. I smiled, pulled the wooden covers over her body and kissed her forehead, moving her tiny blonde curls that looped to her tiny arms. Sweet dreams, my little pumpkin. Quietly I made my way down the stairs, stepping as quietly as I could not to wake my little sister. But they still creaked slightly, for it was an old wooden house, and braced back into the firelight living room and kitchen. My father was gathered to the musket balls, shovels, ropes, and meats that were now covered in salt, and was awaiting me at the doorway. Come, he said.
Where was Mother? Asleep in the bed for the night. Come, son, we must make haste and put these supplies in stockade for the morning light. I slipped on my sharp triangular leather cap, brushing my long hair to the sides, and then wrapping a red swollen scarf around my neck. He handed me 2 musket rifles and a sack of balls, and we pushed open the doors. The night was cold, and the wind whipped in my face, wanting to chap the skin. I carried the 2 muskets at my side and the sack of musket ball lead balls at my right as my father trailed ahead with the lantern, lighting a glow our path. We made it to the stockade littered with farming tools, and a few horses were neighing and drinking their water in their stalls. My father hung on the iron rack the rope and salted meats to dry in the fall wind. I wiped the dust with the cloth off the barrels of the guns and leaned them against the side of the door and threw the musket balls in the back. My father then fed the horses some hay and closed the stockade door, lined with tools that looked more like torture devices. Once finished, I began to walk through the grass, the moon shining silvery in the sparkle light. My father tapped my shoulder from behind. Henry. Yes, Father? I asked, a little annoyed at him. I'm not right with the matter of apologies, but you know what I said thus earlier was not of meaning of ill intent towards you, son. What's in the carriage? Yes, in the carriage. While we were riding past the whaling beaches, I used my anger as a weapon towards you, and you see all the anger is a powerful thing, how a powerful weapon indeed, that you must use your wits to express. I cocked my jaw, seeing what a horrible apology this was. You are doing spectacular with this apology, Father. Quite intriguing. I'm already sailing through God's heavens with joy in my heart for you. And this. I should be kissing your boot buckles at this time indeed, for this is another lesson of lecture you deem to deliver on me in my mind. For how I have created such a spectre of emotion and wronging in this matter, this was great. I'm going to rest this night, for we must do work tomorrow, for the winter time comes upon us soon, and I am tired. And I have no inclination of what you are speaking at this moment in time, Father. Although it seems to me you are trying to justify such actions of ill intent used upon me. Mother would never say such a thing to me, no matter the treachery I could have unfolded. Treachery, Father. You have angered me so in such a way, I cannot explain, for this contradictory terms of your voice for this morning to now make ill sense. Instead, you have plagued me, sir, with devilry and witchery, so I will bid you good night, Father. Henry! My father grabbed my shoulder as I tried to turn away. What? I shook him off. I am sorry, son. For what I said to you in the carriage ride, it had no meaning to thee. I was angry, for I did not like to speak of my brother. I cannot blame your curiosity. You are a bright lad indeed and want to know things. I was like that at your age, lad. I cannot stop thee from such interesting questions. God forgive me, My father's eyes lit up and he stared over my shoulder. His gray eyes seemed to turn orange like a fire in the light. God's blood. It cannot be, he muttered in a hoarse tone. I gazed over my shoulder and my soul seemed to leave my body. My hazel eyes turned into an orange and red. My heart jumped through my mouth. I took off my hat and let it sway in my hand and on my right side as I stared hopelessly ahead. My God, I muttered. In the distance, down the dirt path through the oaks, I could see the city of London ablaze in flames. It seemed to pepper the night sky from dark inky black toward orange and red light that echoed and lit up the world like a giant glass lantern. The entire city was burning rampant. The Tower of London, houses in the harbor, the shops and blacksmiths, the whorehouses, the markets, taverns, and churches were all aflame, as if hell had cracked out of the surface and swept London in a wave of carnage. I could hear the tower echoing the bell that called to our ears, and even the screams of people echoing in the night wind. Every building was on fire, even the harbor water was scorching. Soot and timber crashed and fell in the distance. Me and my father looked at each other in disbelief. London is on fire, I muttered. How can this be? The devil walks the earth today, my father muttered, and now I could see the fire was swarming through the forest our way. The fire was swarming like bees. We must travel away, son. Wake your sister and your mother and pack your things. We must head out to our Aunt Margots farm village outside of London in Wales. Grab the muskets from the storage room, food and water. I'll get the horses saddled and ready. Quickly now, son. Oh, and make sure to grab my chest of gold. It's in our savings. He ushered me. My heart jumped in my mouth, and I started to sprint with my father at my side, slipping back on my cap. We pushed open the door to the storage room, and the horses reeling in terror from the flames in the distance and screams of lost souls being dragged to hell by Satan. I then remembered the dream my sister Maria had told me earlier, and it stung my heart with fear. She had predicted this. How could my 9-year-old sister predict such a fiery doom? I grabbed the musket rifles and gunpowder and balls while my father saddled the mares as they riveted with fear and sweat. Hal, grab your mother and sister now! Yes, sir! I sprinted across the field as the flames scorched the sky. I tripped and picked myself up, my boots kicked up the dirt, and I slung the rifle across my chest with a strap, and my hat flew off my head, my pigtail flying behind me. How could this happen? I slammed open the door and charged upstairs to my mother's room. She was slowly starting to wake up. Henry, what is happening? Why are you so scared at this hour? Mother, grab your clothes and help Father in the shed outside with such horses. I will get Maria. Why? Hunted is in a great fire, I screamed. Her eyes soon took the shape of fear as she peered out their bedroom window at the fiery city in the distance. My God, she muttered. Mother, get your things now, I yelled. We must leave now. I backed out of the room and rushed to my bedroom where Maria was fast asleep. I bent down to her level and shook her awake slowly. Maria, we must depart. Come, I said in a whisper. She yawned and rubbed her eyes with her small hands. Hal, why do you have a rifle? No need that now. No matter that now. Come, I said. I picked her up on my arms, grabbed a few of my books and quills, stuffed them in a leather bag, and carried her out of the house. But before I left, I picked up the chest made of wood. I flipped open the lid to see the gleaming gold coins and took it with me, and I broke back outside, and the flames were scorching the trees and fields. I strapped on my sword as my father fixed the two horses with saddles as we approached. My mother had collected her things, and my father's as we rushed to the stables. My father was gripping a musket in his right hand as the horse bellowed in fear at the fires. The city of London was now a hellscape. Engulfed in heat and flame, it burned my insides just looking at it. As I ran across the field with my musket at my back, Maria's little legs and arms clinging at my back, her tiny head bobbing on my shoulders, I saw a group of peasants and townsfolk burst out of the forest in fear. Men, women, and children, elderly and families running from the city for their lives, people who lost their homes. A carriage sped through the trees with a rider whipping the horse so crazily the horses looked like they could barely stay on their own iron hooves. The packages on his top carriage piling and flying off in pandemonium, letting food and clothes flying to the night, the horses neighing in fear. People screamed and cried at the flames and now have spread close to the trees near our house and farm. Maria started to weep and wail at the people in fear and losing their minds. Peasants and men and women were coated in black soot. Some had third-degree burns on their backs and face, and some carried their charred dead children in their arms. They were frothing at the lips like wild animals, people scared out of their wits. As my sister cried, I patted her back. You'll be alright. They're just dry fireflies, Maria. Lighting our way to our voyage away, bidding us farewell. Once at the sea, you can even talk to the mermaids that sing merry moods and ballads, I said, holding her back in worry. Maria giggled and snuggled into my shoulder. Mother clambered onto the saddle, and I set Maria down as she wore a small nightgown and gave her to my mother, who picked her up. I turned away and saw an older man in a tattered and burning cloak, bloody cut across his left cheek, a gash so deep that flaps of his skin was peeled off, and I could see the inside where his teeth lay. He carried a flintlock pistol in his hand. I knew this man. He was one of our farming neighbors who used to live in the countryside but moved into the city of London for a job as a blacksmith, so he could be closer to his family a few years ago. His name was Avery Hickory. He looked bewildered, like he had lost all sense in him. My father saw him and jogged over to him and caught him as he stumbled. Avery, what has happened? You in the city, what has occurred? Mattered my father. The old man could not speak, for he was in a witless state. I stood in the field like turning golden orange from the fire flurries, and the flakes of gray ash began to rain down as if there were snowflakes the winter that came earlier this year of 1666. Avery clambered onto my father's cloak and coughed and wheezed and spit. Speak, man! What has happened? The city of London is hell now! A great fire has started, on Pudding Lane. Well, fucking beggars haven't sparked and started. As soon turned to the streets and took to the buildings. Black soot covered the streets and the ships. The harbour water is black from ash. The building are heaps of burned timber. He coughed and my father caught him. People have lost their wits, man. There's sense nothing anymore. People are running from London to anywhere but here. They hung the baker, Mr. Farrier, by his neck at the street signs. My God, sir! What is burned? My father coughed, now smoke hitting the air near our farm. We've lost over 9,000 houses, 87 parish churches, the Royal Exchange, Guildhall, and St. Paul's Cathedral in the past 15 minutes. The devil is here. We're all doomed. My killed! We must leave here at once! My father cried. No one can escape the flames! No one! No one! I lost my wife and baby girl in the flames of hell! No one must leave, for we will all suffer! All is lost! Then I watched the old man start to lose his sense. He started to foam at the mouth, his bloodshot eyes flicked from side to side and his hands twitching. My father told me of this. True panic. Get a hold of yourself, Mr. Hickory! Get a hold of yourself now! My father exclaimed, but Avery lost it. He started to aim the pistol at my father, but he jumped in, grabbing a hold of the man's wrist and trying to swing the pistol out of his palm. They struggled together in a quarrel like a chicken in a cockpit. Hell! Hell! He yelled, and the old man punched my father, who fell back on the grass. The old man tried to aim the pistol at my mother and little sister. My instincts kicked in. I remembered something my sister had told me earlier this night, that I'll always protect her. My father kicked the man's legs, making him yelp and stumble. The pistol discharged. The bullet missed my family completely, hitting some crates that blew up in a storm of splinters. The horses reeled in fury, making my mother and sister scream. My father kicked the man's flintlock, but Avery punched my father in the face, making him fly sideways. Then he came behind my father and began to hold him back, choking his neck. Hal, shoot him! My father yelled. My heart dropped and I had never killed anyone before. Ever. But seeing my father in pain and about to die shook something in me I never felt before. It made my body tingle, my heart beat faster, my adrenaline pump. It was survival. I strapped my leather from my chest and stuffed the musket ball in the rod. I poured the powder in quickly as my father's face turned a dark purple. Quickly! My father wheezed. I punched the metal rod into the barrel, but my panic began to make me miss the hole. Finally, I slammed it down and stuffed the ball, slung the rod away, cocked the cocker, and aimed the musket at the old man. My aim was slow and unsteady, just like when I had almost missed a Devonshire rabbit this morning while hunting with my father in the woods. Anxiety came over me. Henry! Shoot! I've never shot anyone before! I screamed as my mother and sister bellowed on the horse, and Maria cried. It's just like shooting a deer again! Nothing different than that, son. You can do this! Study your aim, breathe, and fire like I taught you! He croaked, his face now blue. My heart slowed, my vision focused on the tiny bead at the end of the rifle. My breath steadied. I fired. The musket ball sliced through the man's gullet and he flew back, touching his throat as the crimson blood flowed out as he choked to death on the grass. Blood sprayed on my father's face and he flew to his side unharmed. I stood there shaking, dropping the rifle, my hands trembling, and I vomited behind me in the grass. My stomach felt nauseous. I never killed a man before, and what it felt like was awful. The grass blades were coated in the man's bloodstream like a red wave had passed over it. My father laughed, stumbled to me, and embraced me in a tight hug. I then began to sob as Maria then ran to us from the horse and hugged our legs. It's all right, son. It's all right, lad. He then patted Maria's head, kissed her top head, and then unembraced me and tugged my ponytail playfully and gripped the sides of my face. I knew you could do it. We are Hearthstones. This is what we must do to survive. Like your grandfather and uncles before you and I, son. We are survivors. We are questioners. We are explorers, and we are inventors. Do you understand me? I do, Father. I looked to the sky to see it orange and red, and the moon now a blood moon, blocked by the smoke and flame of the burning London town. We must make haste away, he said. We collected ourselves, and I hopped into the horse's saddle on a third horse with Maria sitting atop my lap, gripping the reins with my black gloved hands, a rifle on my back strapped across my chest. My father took a hold of his horse with my mother on a separate one and began to keep the horses that galloped towards the forest. My horse bellowed, snorted, and then its horses beat up the grass underneath as it galloped ahead, behind my father. His gray curls behind me and my mother's red hair dancing in the fiery wind, with our packs on the backs of the horse's spine. I peered behind me to see the town of London City scorched in a blaze in red flames, and it did not remind me of home, but of hell.